Welcome, possibility seekers the world over, to It's All Possible, Season 2 and Episode 1. On this episode, I'm introducing you to Claire Bourke. Claire Bourke is the General Manager for Customer Solutions for Business and Government at Australia Post. Claire has had an amazing career and it's still on the upward trajectory. I got to talk to Claire today about leadership, about business, about the people who inspire her. Claire Bourke, how are you?
I'm great, thanks Rob. Beautiful day down here in Melbourne. We're out of lockdown. Can't get better than that.
How good is it being out of lockdown? And we're also getting some wonderful days now.
Yeah.
Now, I just was now doing my research and prep, Claire. As you know, I was looking at some detail on you to ask you some good questions. And I got a feeling we may have crossed paths early on. And I'm going to give you two options. First one, Korora school dance. Second one, Shell. Got a feeling Glenferrie Road tram, something like this is going to be pretty close to us.
Yes, Korora was where I went to school, but the train was where I met boys.
Oh, there you go. So yeah, I was down the track a little bit at one of those other ridiculous schools in Hawthorn. So not too far away from Korora, but had some good friends at Korora. So there we go. And then Shell. I think you left there in 2000, if I'm right about that. Yep. We're going back a long way. I started there. I did a project there in my .com days in 2001, where we launched this amazing project. Would you believe we got the URL, thebeach.com, and we were going to do this major online project. It was so exciting, and they canned it within a year. So it was we did a global project. I flew to London, did working show in London. Just one of those great projects that the .com, and they all got scared. The big corporate got scared, and they went, "We don't know where it's going." It would have been such a cool product. There you go.
I did a lot of global projects at Shell, and going to the London or the KL or into Houston was, or even into the Hague. It was a fantastic place to be.
Yeah, what a great organisation. Let's talk about you rather than us. Who were your mentors and heroes growing up?
Yeah, well, I was thinking about this and I immediately said my dad, because my dad was, from very humble beginnings, and he met a guy at a conference in the UK and decided to go into business in Australia with him and brought his family out, and, just amazing. So
your dad was in the UK at the time? So he was in the UK?
I was born in the UK. So
okay, right.
I was 10 months old when I came over, based on my dad wanting to start a business with an Australian guy I met in a conference in London. Incredible. And then, but I actually was thinking about this, and I actually have to say my mum is my hero. And, we can talk about business leaders that inspire me, but my mum had a very middle-class background, but her father died quite early. And her brothers kind of took over the family business, but she was she called herself the bookkeeper, but I call her the CFO.
Right.
And so she was a very talented, business person who then, when they came to Australia, basically was a stay-at-home mum and an incredibly supportive parent, a mum to my brother and I, and our aspirations, and whether that was, on the sporting scene or whatever. And she stayed at home, but she started, my parents actually split up when I was about 21, and my mum moved back to the UK. And at that time, the UK was privatising, so she became an aficionado on the stock market. And she bought a business, and that business was a restaurant, a pub and a hotel, and she went into business with one of her brothers. And she just reinvented herself at 56 years of age, from a stay-at-home mother to literally a business owner, a very successful business owner and stock trader. And, if I had have said that, my mum was going to do that, I thought, I wouldn't have thought that she did. And she did it well. And she came back to Australia once my kids were old enough were starting school, to support me and my career. So she's my hero, because at 56 years of age, when, something changed for her in her life, she was able to adapt and thrive. And I always figured that whatever happens in my life, I can take that, that I know that must be genetically in me, that I can adapt and change to whatever comes my way. And, it's a good feeling to feel that you can rely on yourself and, what's within you and nothing else. So that's why she's my hero.
Claire, I just want to say here that she's also my hero now. I just think that is absolutely fantastic. And I want to put that into context also because, one of the biggest issues we have as a country is single women 55 plus. And it's a real major issue because if they do have a split up, sometimes it happens. Sometimes they get the kids through school and all sorts of things. And, couples split up for whatever reason. But the women are generally the losers in that because they've been that stay-at-home mum, which I think is actually a full-time job, frankly. But they've also haven't had the career, they haven't had the connection and the network to go back. Their super is typically, everything's kind of split in half or less. And so for your mum, that is such an inspirational story to hear that. Is she back here now? Is she still here?
Well, she's passed away now, but she did come back. And she managed my kids. I was working at Shell at the time, and I was traveling to Houston and The Hague.
Wow.
And my husband, he's amazing, and he was very supportive of my career. So between the two of them, on a Sunday night, we would plan out the week and who was doing pickups and drop-offs.
Yes.
And so we talk about the people behind the mum or the dad, whoever the worker is. I definitely had that amazing support. But no, she's passed away now, so she's still incredible. I can feel that strength.
Yeah, what an iconic, and I've liked the way that you said that she didn't come out to look after the kids; she managed the kids. I like that. She managed the kids. And that's very good.
And had a brilliant relationship with both of them, and the kids still talk about grandma and how she managed them.
and I think that's the legacy too, isn't it? I think that's amazing. What about today? And so in today, I mean, you've had a phenomenal career. We'll get into more of that. But what about sort of leaders today that people you aspire to or look up to today?
Yeah, look, I think, I would have to say Christine Holgate. I can't go past Christine as a leader. I think what she brought to post and the courage that she's shown more recently with what's gone on, I think, if I look further abroad, I think of people like Jacinda Ardern, and it's not necessarily that I understand them as leaders, but moments like the Christchurch terrorism attack and the leadership that she showed and the empathy and compassion. And then, I am obsessed with Ruth Bader Ginsburg and, the High Court, the Supreme Court judge in the US, and, who's just passed away recently. And anyone who knows me knows that I read everything about her. I read, seen movies, read. And, it wasn't, people think that it might be that because she's a feminist icon, but I think for me it was more about, I think she's a legal and a cultural icon. And she was so principled, and she also had a fantastic relationship with her partner. She brought up children while she was at law school, and I think she's an inspiration to many women. And coming from a tech background, there's not a lot of great tech leaders, female tech leaders, but there's a lot of leaders that we can take a lot from. And so look, and even closer to home, I think Julie Bishop is amazing. And I don't know why I'm saying all women, I don't know, but even closer to home, Peggy O'Neill, who first president of the Richmond Football Club. I actually sat in a session with Christine Corbett and her, two very interesting women and similar careers in terms of started with a legal background. But, I just love what Peggy's done in terms of the cultural leadership she's provided to that club. The premierships are great. I'm a Richmond supporter, but it's the cultural leadership that she's demonstrated. And so, yeah, look, I get an inspiration, from a lot of different people. And I have said all women, but, there are, I can't think of any now. But.
Well, they're inspirational people. I think I'll take point on a couple of things. One is, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, my boys think she's fantastic. So my boys who are, just finished school and in uni. And so I think it's not so much the feminist side, but actually just what she stood for.
Correct.
And all sorts of areas. So they're, young men who clearly looked up to her and saw her as a leader.
Yeah.
first, I think, and as a feminist second, but for all the right reasons. So I think that's definitely there. And I think Jacinda Ardern is a good example. Now I have to tell you this, you will know more about her because my cousin is actually writing her biography for Wiley.
I
And it's
read
coming
her
out
on
next year.
LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty exciting. So he's a co-author of that, so it'll be out next year. So I'll make sure you get a copy of that when it comes out.
Into what she's really like. I follow her on Instagram, so I see all the good stuff, but we all know that people can create personas and veneers in Instagram and social media.
Oh, surely not.
Yeah,
You
it's
doubting
true.
Thomas.
You heard it here first, but I want to know what she's really like because I think she's impressive, but I just don't know enough about how effectual she has been in terms of leading change in New Zealand.
Yeah, and as I said, some people talk politics, but I'm just saying, look, I think any woman who gets to that level in politics anywhere in any political connection has done well because it's a brutal game, and Julie Bishop's a good example. Wish she was still in Canberra, quite frankly. Now, you spend a lot of time also in professional services and technology. What's the attraction of technology, especially for you?
Well, it came down to, I did science at university. I majored in biomechanics and physiology. So I'm obsessed with the human body and how it works. But I went into this education system. So I taught for a couple of years. I taught phys ed and science. And at that time, I landed in a country school with, I think, 10 married couples on the staff because they'd all met and they lived in the country town. And I'd be talking about new ideas and they'd be saying, oh, no, we tried that in 1976 and it didn't work. And I thought, this isn't for me. And again, my dad said, you just need to get into a large international. You don't know what you want to actually do. You just need to get into a good company and work it out. So that was really good advice. And I saw this little ad in the Age, which I always perused every Saturday morning. Whether I was happy in my job or not, I knew every job that was going on in town. I've always been like that. And there was a job at Shell and it was a graduate role. And I thought, I can't really go for that because I've been out teaching for about a year and a half. Anyway, I applied and I got it and I call myself a delayed grad.
Yeah, isn't that great? Well done.
And I really wanted to get into HR because, I love people. And they said, well, you can get into HR, but start in technology. And I actually started in operations, doing shift work, like coding and like stuff that is, and people who know me today go, I don't even know how she did that. But I quickly found my niche. And it was because of, a great mentor, a guy called Ian Freer, who was the CIO at the time. He was an industrial chemist by trade who'd moved into technology. And he sat down with me as one of the grads and said, I understand you want to get into HR and you can, and you'll change one person at a time through HR. You stay in technology and you can change a lot more people. This is going to change the world, technology. And this was like 88, 89. And he was right. And so I found this niche in technology that I'm not a technologist, but I am a person who understands business and how technology can help that business. And that was kind of the niche I played in, never in the deep technology. I did come to Post to do the deep infrastructure, technology infrastructure change, but that was really about leading people through change. And that, so people say to me, I was talking to one of my mentors recently, and she said, such a strange thing to do to go from technology to sales. And I said, well, sales was going through a transformation. Technology was going through a transformation. It's leading transformation and it's leading people through change. That really is what I loved about, any role that it's not the what I do, it's the why and the who, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. And he was spot on the money, wasn't he? Because at that time, I remember I was at Rio Tinto. So I was like you, I kind of went I'm an accountant by profession. So I'd come from KPMG, went to Rio. And Rio just had these great places to explore as well. And I brought the PC revolution. In fact, I brought Apple into PCs firstly, then Apple into Rio Tinto, and it was an exciting time. So I actually got to work with the board, and because I was so super young, but because Apple had come in and because we could I could do board reports better than anyone else could. They just looked cooler, and so I actually got to work with some amazing individuals. Just simply because I could put their stuff together better and they look better when they presented, which was an exciting experience. It was around technology around that early days, wasn't it? It was so exciting. And it's not changing. It's not changing now. That's what I like about it. It's always been evolving, isn't it? It's accelerating even more now. So you had lots of time. You spent a lot of time at ANZ in banking as well. What brought you to Post? What kind of attracted you to Australia Post?
Well, again, it comes back to the why. And I don't think, I've done a lot of presentations to technology dudes about what we did in Post from a technology perspective. There was such a compelling reason and need for change. It wasn't just a burning platform. Consumer behaviour had changed. We weren't selling letters. People weren't sending letters, so we weren't selling letters. So we had to change. And we had no technology assets to digitise our business. So, my job was to come in and to create the cloud capabilities and to build the network infrastructure. We built out new data centres, and in the first 3 years at Post, I basically touched every piece of infrastructure and we updated it, replaced it, transformed it. What attracted me was the fear of could I actually do it and the discomfort I felt. But what anchored me was the who. So, I remember going to see Ahmed talk about Australia Post, and I thought, A, yeah, he's charismatic, but B, he's got a real reason for change. And then I met Andrew Walduck, and many people will remember Andrew Walduck. He had a real vision for what he wanted. And once I've got a clear vision and, just let me go. And I had 400 people. We had to change a lot of those people. They'd been at Post for a long time, but, we wanted to do it really well and really respectfully. And we wanted to make sure we gave them every opportunity to find another role at Post. So it was probably the toughest 3.5 years of my career, but the most rewarding. And, I always feel very proud of how we went about that. And then, of course, I thought, I will find something else. I'll leave Post. I've come here to do what I want. But there's something about Post and the way the values, align with mine, and still the opportunity for broader change that retained. And I then went into technology business partnering. And of course, I partnered into Andrew Walduck, who'd moved into the business, and Christine Corbett. So I learnt the retail business, which was just fascinating because I had no background in, even though I'd been at Shell that had a retail arm, that's not where I'd sort of spent my time. So it was, it's just been having the opportunity to learn new business models. And when Gary and Christine arrived, and when Gary said that he wanted to run a consulting capability in the team, I really had made a decision then that I wanted to move closer to the customer. In technology, you can be a little bit removed, and I wanted to get closer to the customer. And, I went through the process and I was successful, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm in sales. And I think I'm in customer. And right. I love it. I feel very blessed that I've had 3 amazing opportunities at Post. But it is the values of the organisation, it is the people, and it's the opportunity to change a 210-year-old organisation.
I think also it's also good of Post to realise when they have people like you that are transportable in different roles, and so the values align. It's a great organisation. You didn't particularly want to leave. It was just the nature of the business. When you looked around and said, hang on a second, I wonder if there's something else I can do. But also the leaders at the time would look around and go, hang on, here's someone we don't want to lose. And too many businesses have IP just walk out the door and have these people that generated so much and go so close to the business, know the business, know the leadership, know the peers, and have that leave. But I think that's fantastic of them to recognise that and give you the different opportunities as well.
And I think it is so important. And I think, we need to look at the whole person and all of their experience. We tend to look at the role someone's doing right now. And, and I think with, some of the HR work that we're doing at the moment to understand people's history and how that can be adapted. Because often I'm still talking to people and they'll say, yeah, I ran this project in, about 5 years ago. And I'm like, that was a massive transformation project. Here's Post trying to, you've got John Cox doing the transformation. We're doing all this stuff. Do we know the skills of this person? They're doing a great job here, but recognize this, and how can we leverage that? So we do need to do more of that.
And I think it is such an attractive brand post. And I'm saying that because I originally was involved in Post in 2004 when it was my account when I was at Mojo, the agency. So I've changed my careers numbers of times and ran. In fact, and that's where last time we actually connected, I think I was on the call with Michael Cope, who was my client. So Michael Cope was my client in 2004. And that's why he said, gee, we should get together every 15 years. It's really exciting. But yeah, he was my client. That was actually, back in those days, Michael was running the retail side. So I had this really good vision of the retail side of the brand, plus also the corporate side. Work with Mark Robertson alike on that side of the business. And it has been, and I believe it still is one of the most iconic brands. It keeps on coming back up as brands. And I think it's why people get so protective of it. And I mean that from like Australians get so protective of that brand.
Yeah.
It's almost an ownership side of thing as well, and which can make it really tough as well, because people feel they all own it. They've all got something to say about it. So it's a little different than ANZ or even a Shell to a certain extent, or a Rio. We don't have the same sort of emotional connection to it, which can make the job of change hard, I think.
Well, I think, if I compare the change journey at Post to the bank that I was at, the burning platform wasn't there for the banks. And, you could say that after the Royal Commission, it's maybe there, but I don't think it was, the change was really to drive efficiency and shareholder value. And I don't think that really is inspiring. To change an organisation that's been around for so long like Post, and to keep it relevant in rural and regional communities as well as metro, and to make sure it sustains, I think that resonates with people, to keep our e-commerce wheels turning. It resonates with people, and that's why I think it is such a great brand.
And we've had, just on that, because I want to ask you as a leader and also a leader in technology, and as well as going through massive change at Post, what we've seen, in the last 6 months during this period has really been what people thought was going to happen in 3 years. So kind of 3 years of e-commerce data and 3 years of retail forecasting and all sorts of stuff. It's sort of been crunched. And people say that now this is not just going through COVID, but actually we've accelerated into the fourth industrial revolution. Like this is the new normal. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, I think I think that we are in the fourth, what they call Industry 4.0. I think that, we've blurred the boundaries between the physical, the digital, and even the biological work. And I think the opportunity that we're seeing, and again, through science, so if you think back to Mr. Freer, our CIO, and saying science will change the world, with AI, robotics, Internet of Things, the possibilities are endless, and it's not just that we can automate, it's the predictive nature of what that data can tell us, and, how that applies to Australia Post. And, our data science team is amazing. And, we're starting to look at things like, the 2-hour windows for delivery, but, just the possibility of helping us make faster decisions, and for a salesperson at Post now to get access to true insight to share with your customer around their supply chain and optimization, or even their market that they're trading to. I mean, I think, we need to take that, all of those things and apply them to create goodness for our customers. And if we start with the customer, and what we can bring to them, that will lead to innovation and solving complex problems for our customers that will, we'll be able to repeat and repeat and repeat. And, what that will lead to is we'll continue to, improve the bar about e-commerce. And what I mean by that is the customer experience. And, and sitting behind that customer experience will be all the supply chain and all the challenges that they have. But what we'll see is, because it's customer-led, we'll see everything fall in line behind that. And I can just see that, we have the power to help our customers really orchestrate that customer experience, which will fundamentally uplift the level of e-commerce in this country and globally. I think we've got a wonderful opportunity with APG to really, help customers go online, nail the domestic market, but then to really go and, push out into the global market. And, there's nothing stopping us from being the best in the business at that, particularly if we leverage that data.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And the data side, understanding that. And so I was working with one of the major banks, and their data they had was really interesting. They're working with a fast food chain, and you wouldn't think this, but this is a investment bank that actually changed the menu of a fast food chain.
Right.
Because their data analytics showed that their cash flow and the high cash flow and profitability started dropping off after 10:30, and then it came back on again. And so they had a lot of data to prove that up, right? And they could show when it went up, when it went down, and they took that to the fast food chain and said, what do you take off the menu at 10 o'clock? And that was actually the critical question. So from the salesperson who took that data to the customer, because they can't know everything, said, here's the data we've got. This is what we're seeing. We think you should be able to not have a reason, but it shouldn't be dropping off at that point. Right. And so with a bit of critical thinking and real consultative selling skills, I sat down with the restaurant chain who said, oh, we pull off this particular burger at that time. It comes off the breakfast menu because then we move into lunch. And they said, well, let's pilot keeping the breakfast going to 12.
Yeah.
Let's just pilot it, right? And they went, show us the data, and they did the pilot. Unbelievable. No drop off, right? And there was just literally two products, which of course the bank's not going to know the product. The owner will know the product, but the bank was able to show the data and the cash flow upside of keeping for 2 hours off the drop. Oh my God, it was unbelievable. And actually, the real challenge was actually pricing the data, was actually pricing the service. So that's the reason I was working with the bank, because they said, well, how do we're selling to them. They're a client of ours, but now we've got this extra sort of product. Should we productize this? And what's it worth? It was a fascinating piece of work to do because no one had ever done it before. But the one thing I learned through that was that the salespeople had to be literal, not order takers, but consultative salespeople with critical thinking and data skills, which was interesting.
I agree. And I think, I would add to that, that curiosity to ask the question why, and then the creativity. And, if we've got the data, you bring the curiosity and the creativity, you can solve complex problems, right? But you do it with your customer. And, that's really what I love about the work that my team does is, we're not selling a product, we're trying to understand their business and the challenges they have and understand the pain points and then to solution around those pain points. But, using data, using, those thought processes of, co-designing with our customers, you can do amazing things. And I'm amazed, whether it's, trying to understand how we can better deliver alcohol to, solving, how we can, optimize the supply chain, all of those problems, they're very meaningful outcomes to both that business, but to their customers and to Post. And, that's where I think we can, we can do some really cool stuff.
So when we're looking for leaders in the future and you're looking for leaders, you're appointing different leaders and you look for leaders now as we go into, say, 2021, it's a very different world. What are some things you look for in, say, leaders in the future or high potential leaders?
Yeah, look, I think there's probably three things, and I wrap it up to the term, they've got to be a good human. That's the first sort of thing. But I look for courage. I look for curiosity, which I mentioned before, and creativity. And, they're really hard things to interview for. And therefore, what I always like to think about is, and I often ask this question, who's your greatest advocate? And I often say to my team, who are your advocates right now? Who would be, if I disappear, who is going to advocate for you and your leadership? So I think, those sort of things are really important. But if we break those down, I mean, courage, there's a boldness, someone who will challenge the status quo. And I think at Australia Post, that's really important, because when you have a long history, you have thought processes and paradigms that have existed for a very long time, and they're like mollusks on a rock. You gotta get underneath, and that takes courage, and it takes tenacity, and at times it can be, exhausting. But you've got to be able to have that courage. So I look for that. Curiosity is the person that just keeps asking why. And, we all, I remember my boys when they were young, they'd ask why. And I used to limit them. I say, you can ask 2 questions and that's it, which is a terrible parenting thing to do. But now, that was just because they were annoying me. But, and they both are very curious kids still to this day. But curiosity is something that drives. And I know sometimes when I'm tired and exhausted, and when I think about COVID and when we were on calls day in, day out, trying to help customers, my curiosity levels were at 0. I was just trying to, deal with the customer issues. And so curiosity is really important, and the ability to find your mind share to think curiously. And so, how do people do that? How do they manage their workload? When people say they're really good under pressure, that's great, but how do they find mind share to think about bigger problems or tomorrow and things like that? And then creativity is the ability to solve problems as well. So, I look for all of those sort of things, and the construct of a good human. And I was listening to Simon Sinek this week, and, he said, recruit slowly and, take people out for a coffee and get to know them. And I absolutely support that. So, I think we have wonderful leaders. In fact, I was talking to one of my direct reports, and I said, we all, we've developed such great talent, and, we've got to, the tide keeps rising, and we want people to promote them, and we want them to develop and expand. So, I think we are developing some great talent at Australia. We have some, and we continue to develop great talent. And you can see people when they go off and they even leave post, they go off to do great things.
And that's part of a leader, isn't it? I mean, I think that one of the things we're taking the guys and girls through on the leading remote teams has been one of the principles we anchor is challenge the process. So I love the fact you brought that up. It's one of the big ones. But also leaders, all leaders, the real job of all leaders is to create more leaders. And if you actually take that on and are intentional about that, it actually changes your perspective. It changes who you recruit. It changes how you develop them. It changes how you coach them. As you're developing, your role is to develop more leaders. You get to a point where you're excited. And it's been, for me, meeting so many leaders at Post through the program. It's been exciting seeing a lot of the long-term leaders at Post who've now kind of reached to their own words, it's not all about me now. And they would actually fully admit that, it was all about me. Actually, the first 10 years of my leadership, now it's actually, I'm really interested in developing other people and seeing my people shine and seeing my people grow. And whether they grow outside of Post or inside Post, they're just getting the kick now. It's actually seeing their leaders grow to be better leaders. And I think that's exactly your point you made. That's a great thing. Hey, last question for you. If we had to go back in time and you had to meet 15-year-old Claire, what would you tell her about life?
Oh my God. Well, I'd probably tell her that Levi's 501s don't fit everyone, because I do think I was obsessed with Levi 501s at that point in time, which Georgia will be happy to hear, because I think her dad was the reseller of that. I think at 15, I would focus on, this construct that, life is, a constant learning. I think at 15, I used to think about when I finish school, when I finish uni, when I do this. And so I used to have finite goals. And I think what I would know now is that things evolve. And, I always think about those sliding door moments, is explore everything fully before you make your decision. I pride myself on being, a good decision maker. I think probably I make decisions, some of those decisions probably quite quickly without fully exploring them. So I'd probably tell myself to go a bit slower and explore. I would also probably tell her that, wanting to be a world figure skating champion is probably not going to happen. and stop getting up stop getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and going skating, and do something more practical, because I was very obsessed with ice skating at 15. So yeah, I think it would be just about, I think you can do whatever you want to do, but take your time to explore and don't create too finite goals. I think I actually had a goal too about I wanted to be married at 26, and I don't even know where that date came. And I was married well before that, interestingly enough. It's our 35th wedding anniversary next week.
Congratulations, well done.
But, I just think that was I don't know where I got it from, and people would say I was very goal orientated. And I think in those days we used to think that was good. But I think in hindsight, I'd say just relax on the goals and, I don't know, create milestones or something not as fixed.
Yeah.
Because I think you can close off avenues if you become too rigid with those goals.
Yeah, I love that analogy there, and that's sometimes also when you get rooted in reality, you miss the chance to do what's possible, and that many of the possibilities in life are things that haven't been done before and aren't. Sometimes we break the rules, and someone's the first time to do it. So I think that's a really good point to have that. And it's a little bit what Simon Sinek talked about, the infinite game. You certainly have milestones along the way, and a lot of people have misinterpreted Simon because they don't read the book; they just listen to one TED talk. And his whole point is you definitely have milestones and KPIs and goals along the way, but the infinite game is like, a customer obsession or a bigger thing, not just one finite thing. So I think that's really good advice, what you said just then. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Hey, Claire, it's been awesome having you on the podcast. People are going to love this, I know, and get a great insight into you as well, especially around Levi 501s. Now, I've got to ask you one last question. Have you seen the movie Blades of Glory, given all that ice skating experience that you had?
My kids, isn't that with, I have.
Will Ferrell.
Will Ferrell and Owen. My kids are obsessed with all of those Will Ferrell movies. So I've seen, I think, Stepdad or anything, like they're 24 and 25 and they still quote stuff out of that movie. So yeah. I've seen all of them many times. what
some great weekends in the Bourke household. Claire, thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob. Have a great day. See ya.
No worries. Hey, thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe and rate the podcast you listen to so we can continue to serve and inspire others. Remember, connect to us on all the social media channels. The Art of the Possible podcast is hosted by me, Rob Hartnett, and produced by Finn Hartnett. Connect with us directly on LinkedIn, Rob-Hartnett, Hartnett, and Finn Hartnett.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.